Unification of divine treasures, contribution of the saintly king. Hello friends, welcome to Star Explainer. Tales of Herding Gods Part 315 and 316 explains based on novel. So let's start explanation. After Woodcutter and the rest of the heavenly teachers paid their respects, they surrounded Celestial Venerable Yu to study the blessings from all the ancient gods. They had all studied hard during the founding emperor era, and as long as they were focused on one thing, they didn't care who the target was. Celestial Venerable Yu stood there, not daring to move. He just let these people study him. Scholar even took out a needle to prick him on his fingertips, taking some blood to study. As for the discussion between these four heavenly teachers, Celestial Venerable Yu didn't understand anything. As the scholar with profound knowledge in eternal peace, Qin Mu also joined in the discussion. Celestial Venerable Yu stood there at a loss. Suddenly, one of the heavenly teachers said, "Invite Jiang Bai Gui over, he usually has ideas." Not long later, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor also hurried over, and he began to circle around Celestial Venerable Yu as though he had found a treasure. "Minister Qin's place seems to be rather lively, I've come this time." Emperor Yang Feng came to visit, and he soon became one of the people to circle around Celestial Venerable Yu. "Mua, what is it that you have asked me to come back for?" First ancestor, human emperor brought 20 to 30 young men and young women in. Village chief was also among them, and his limbs were now intact. First ancestor and village chief went up while the 20 to 30 young men and young women pulled Qin Mu out and looked at him with all smiles. Qin Mu was bewildered and asked, "Senior brothers and senior sisters, you are? So you are the current human emperor, Qin Mu?" One short and stumpy man asked loudly. "I heard you are very powerful." VoxNovel.com. Qin Mu replied humbling, "I am the current human emperor, but I'm not powerful. There are still quite a number of people whose wits and talents surpass me in this world. In terms of cultivation and abilities, there are countless. May I know who everyone here is? Stop crapping and let's fight." Everyone rushed up, and their abilities weren't weak. Their methods were superior, and every one of them was a top-notch expert. Qin Mu hurriedly dodged only to see that these people had marvelous and unpredictable footsteps. They were actually able to follow after his footsteps and close in on his left and right. They pincered him, causing him to have nowhere to run. He was astonished. When did so many experts suddenly appear in Eternal Peace Empire? Every one of them has abnormally strong abilities. It's fine if they are young, but the thing is that every one of them has a cultivation realm not inferior to mine, he thought to himself. Everyone flooded towards him, and they seemed to be full of experience. It was like they had frequently fought like this and seemed to be good at brawling. However, I'm never afraid to fight a bunch of people. Runes swirled around Qin Mu's body and teleported the dozen of people that were close to him over 10 miles away. Next, he transformed into his three-headed and six-armed form. With his divine art of the martial Tao bursting forth, over a dozen experts collapsed on the ground and couldn't move. Qin Mu's feet moved and executed all kinds of divine arts with his 3 heads and 6 arms. Figures got blown away by him, and they collapsed here and there. His 6 arms opened up, and his runes reversed. The people that got sent 10 miles away were brought back, before they could even land on the ground. Magnetism, great divine art. Qin Mu's palms pushed forward, and these dozen or so people immediately felt their corporeal bodies and primordial spirits become incomparably heavy. With a loud bang, they collapsed to the ground and created a huge pit. Over 30 yards away, the short fatty secretly got up, and was about to land a sneak attack with his divine art when Qin Mu smacked him with the back of his palm. The heavenly fire divine art burst forth, and blew that short fatty high up into the air. He flailed his arms and landed somewhere. Having more than 30 young experts that aren't weaker than me suddenly appear. When did Eternal Peace have so many talents? Qin Mu was still bewildered. He shook his head and walked towards Celestial Venerable Yu. Village Chief looked at him with a sly gaze and winked. Qin Mu was slightly stunned and instantly came to a realization. He cried out, Human Emperor Qi Kang, Human Emperor Yi Shan. And also second ancestor. Third ancestor. It's you guys. You guys came together with first ancestor. He hurriedly went to help those young men and young women up, saying as he stamped his foot, I was wondering where so many experts, not inferior to myself, came from. So it's grandmasters and ancestors. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? If you had, I wouldn't have used so much force. You are second ancestor, right? The young man that got helped up by him hurriedly shook his head. I'm not. You are fifth ancestor. Qin Mu sized up another young man and said excitedly. I'm not, don't speak blindly. That young man blushed and stuttered as he tried to argue. How strong and awe-inspiring fifth ancestor is, how could I be compared to him? I'm merely a small fry. Qin Mu took off the willow leaf on the heart of his brows and looked with his third eye. He instantly had a clear view of everyone's primordial spirits and smiled. You are fifth ancestor. Even though your appearance has changed, your primordial spirit hasn't. Have you possessed this body, or have you reincarnated? That youth blushed and couldn't say a word. Ancestor Lan Po. Ancestor to all you. Grand Master Qi Kang. It is indeed you guys. Was the short fatty that I blasted away with the heavenly fire divine art Grand Master Yi Shan? Qin Mu hurriedly said, I don't know where he flew to, what should I do? Human Emperor Qi Kang walked over and snorted. Just now you said that we aren't inferior to you, is there this kind of inferiority? Qin Mu explained, when I said not inferior, I meant that you are all inferior by a line. Human Emperor to all you said angrily, is the difference of being inferior by a line so huge? Qin Mu scratched his head. What I meant is the slightest difference leads to a huge error. Let's not talk about this. Ancestors, Grand Masters, first ancestor kept running out frequently and saying he had matters to attend to, was his teaching you guys techniques and divine arts. The human emperors looked one another in the eyes while second ancestor hung his head down and sighed. First ancestor has been training us in the Jade Brightness Palace behind the Hall of Human Emperors, teaching us techniques and divine arts. He also took out the techniques of the founding emperor era and taught them to us. Coming out this time was supposed to be a big surprise for you. Qin Mu said with a smile, Ancestors, Grand Masters, don't be dejected. First ancestors' abilities are also inferior to mine by one line, so you guys aren't bad. The main point is still that you guys have been holed up in the Hall of Human Emperors for the past few years. Eternal Peace's paths, skills, and divine arts are improving at a godly pace. So when you learn from the founding emperor era, and not Eternal Peace, your paths, skills, and divine arts are full of flaws in my eyes. However, in terms of cultivation, you guys are no weaker than me. Granny Sai's voice rang out in astonishment as she asked, Mua, why is your place so lively? Qin Mu hurriedly abandoned everyone to welcome her in delight. Ancestors, Grand Masters, Granny is the person that created the magnetism divine art. My great divine art of magnetism was learned from her. Find a place to sit first, I shall go welcome Granny. That's right. Who's going to find Human Emperor Yi Shan? Mua, you're back. Blind tapped his way in with his cane. Blind, what are you running so fast for? Deaf and Butcher followed right behind. Qin Mu's manor was already packed with people, and they had no place to settle down. Qin Mu hurriedly asked Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, "Junior brother, how many people have you invited?" "There's still Tao Master, Rulai Ma, and those from the Little Jade capital." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "I've informed King Yama's side as well. As for Crimson Light's remaining survivors at the South Sea, they aren't our power, so I didn't inform them. Grand Chancellor Xu Xinghua is too far away, at West Earth, and would take 2 to 3 years to arrive, so he wasn't informed either." Qin Mu was stunned for a moment and hurriedly called over a few maids. "I have too many guests, and there are no places left to stay. Take some money and buy the manors around us." The maid in charge said, "Most of the people living nearby are merchants and nobles, they will probably raise the price. I don't lack that petty change." Qin Mu waved his hands and got them to hurry. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was silent for a moment before asking, "Heavenly Saint Cult donated a lot of money to the treasury for disaster relief. How does Senior Brother still have so much money? Maybe Linga earned it in Border Dragon City." Qin Mu didn't really know either and said apologetically, "I never ask about money as I'm not interested in it." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor walked away silently and continued to study the blessings of the ancient gods with everyone else. After buying the manors in the surroundings, Qin Mu immediately tore down the walls and established access between all the manors, making it convenient to move from place to place. After some days, Wang Muren, Mu Qingdai, and the rest from Little Jade capital hurried over. Some more time passed before Tao Master Lin Xian arrived with numerous old Taoists and young Taoists of the Tao sect. Rulai Ma brought Devil Ape Zhong Kong and Monk Ming Xin over as well. Qin Mu heard that Sakura Buddha had also arrived, but he didn't see him. He was either hiding from the old farmer or, perhaps, already lying in a ditch after getting blown away by the old farmer. Experts were gathered in the manor with Tao Master Lin Xian leading numerous Taoists to draw all kinds of runes from the blessings of the ancient gods. On the other hand, other people were deducing the marvel of these runes, trying to use all kinds of methods to solve the blessings. Celestial Venerable Yu's blessings are a huge treasure vault. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor suddenly said, "If we sort out the runes contained in the blessings of the ancient gods, we can determine the rune systems of the ancient gods' great Taos. Eternal Peace's great Tao of runes will definitely welcome a big bang." Woodcutter said, "Don't be in a hurry to get rid of these blessings, let's sort them out quickly. If we can sort them out, this will be the rune system of the ancient celestial heavens." Qin Mu also wanted to participate in the research, but he got chased out by the 4 heavenly teachers. The old farmer said, "You have your own things to do. Go open your 7th divine treasure, and call me when you're done." Qin Mu was helpless. He could only cultivate hard and open up the divine treasures. The speed in which he opened up the 7th divine treasures became faster and faster. Every time he opened one, the old farmer would destroy it with a punch before going back to his research. 4 to 5 months later, all of the rooms were filled with all kinds of records for the runes. The gods in the manor were all disheveled and dirty. Only Scholar, Granny Sai, and the rest of the women still paid attention to their image. On the other hand, Qin Mu was opening the last 7th divine treasure, the Celestial River Divine Treasure. The Celestial River Divine Treasure was thought and designed by him with reference to the celestial river of the ancient celestial heavens. This divine treasure would flow out from the celestial palace and towards the 7th divine treasure. The river would then pass through the celestial being, 7 stars, 5 elements, 6 directions, and spirit platform to enter Yudu. Qin Mu was suddenly stunned. If that's the case, wouldn't all the divine treasures become one when the 7th divine treasure is opened? He blinked his eyes. Xu Xinghua had already created the Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge as a technique to combine all the other divine treasures into one. Yet, the Builder Tree Divine Bridge's requirement for algebra was too high, so there weren't many people in the world who could construct the bridge. Algebra experts were required to plant a magic seed in the Tao heart, planting a sapling in the body of the divine arts practitioners. Thus, the builder tree divine bridge was difficult to popularize. If one had this celestial river divine treasure, it would be much simpler. One celestial river would be able to connect all of the divine treasures, and even all of the celestial palaces together. Qin Mu emptied his thoughts and used his own vital qi to comprehend the power of heaven and earth, gathering the power of heaven and earth to open up the celestial river divine treasure. This was what he had learned from Celestial Venerable Yu. The most difficult part about opening the celestial river divine treasure was on how to connect it to the celestial palace. It was impossible to rely just on his own strength. Even someone as strong as Qin Mu didn't have that dense vital qi, so other people who cultivated to the life and death realm could forget about it. Only with the power of heaven and earth could one create something from the void, to create a celestial river that stretched through the celestial palaces and the divine treasures. A person's power was limited, but the power of heaven and earth was beyond imagination. For example, when Celestial Venerable Yu was opening up his spirit embryo divine treasure, he had no cultivation realm. His vital qi was shallow, and he could only be considered a martial arts practitioner. Yet after mobilizing the power of heaven and earth, he could open up the spirit embryo divine treasure in his body from nothing, constructing his spirit platform, and refining his spirit embryo. If he relied purely on cultivation, the minimum requirement for one's own cultivation had to reach the celestial being realm. Furthermore, the art of creation also had to reach the peak in order for them to achieve such a step. Yet, it might not succeed even then. Qin Mu mobilized more and more power from heaven and earth, causing the atmosphere to become more and more terrifying. Above the manor was a whirlpool swirling furiously, and under everyone's feet was another huge whirlpool of darkness, which was still expanding. The people that were studying the blessing behind Celestial Venerable Yu's head were all used to these phenomena happening on Qin Mu's body. Yet this time, they discovered something different. In the past, Qin Mu frequently borrowed the power of heaven and earth to open up all kinds of divine treasures. They were shocked the first few times, but they gradually got used to it. They would at most scold him for being abnormal. Yet this time, the whirlpool was expanding much faster than before. It quickly surpassed the huge manor and stretched outwards, shrouding several streets. The guards of the capital city were alarmed, and they dispatched troops to investigate, thinking that there was some old demon hiding in the capital city and wreaking havoc. Emperor Yang Feng dismissed them and said, "It's Minister Qin Mu." Those guards immediately understood and fell back. They got the demon subjugation guards to withdraw and said, "It's Cult Master Qin, that old demon." The whirlpool of darkness on the ground was still spreading, and the Imperial College was gradually shrouded as well. Even half of the capital city was invaded, and the people in the city were anxious. When they walked in the darkness, they were afraid they would fall. Only when they didn't fall were they slightly at ease. There were children playing on the streets, and when they saw the darkness spreading under them, they immediately bawled from being frightened. Mothers ran over and hurriedly carried their children inside, shutting the doors tight and locking them. Cries from children could be heard coming from many houses in the capital city, and there were even parents scolding, "If you continue to cry, the old green-faced devil with fangs will jump out and take you away." The whirlpool above the capital city wasn't so terrifying, as it was being formed by countless lights. It was also expanding furiously, and there were flashes of lightning and rumbles of thunder from the whirlpool. Finally, these two huge whirlpools sandwiched the capital city in the middle. Gales swept in the sky above, and lightning strikes rained down on Qin Mu's manor. Right at this moment, the two huge whirlpools suddenly shook, and a pillar of pitch-black light poured out from the ground. On the other side, an extremely bright pillar of light descended down from the sky to collide together. Both huge whirlpools swirled furiously, and the pillars of light became more and more intense. The black became blacker, the bright became brighter. In the center, where both pillars of light had collided, Qin Mu gathered the power of heaven and earth in his body. The power gathered in the heart of his brows, and his hands constantly changed to form mudra skills. Suddenly, more arms came out from his back, and they created mudra furiously to open up the celestial river divine treasure. Suddenly, he was slightly stunned. He could feel a strange power coming from far away. This kind of power seemed to be from the real celestial river. It was boundless and deep, surging forward endlessly. Qin Mu's heart stirred. This power was from the south, and it should be from the surging river's direction. Could the surging river really be the celestial river? As he formed his mudra, he tried to detect the source of this power. His consciousness flowed in reverse and chased after this power to continue forward. His consciousness was incomparably strong, and that was because he had received Crimson Emperor's inheritance. This allowed him to cultivate an undying God consciousness, which was incomparably durable. It was able to stretch to faraway places. Back when Crimson Emperor had died in Crimson Light Floating World, his consciousness was undying, and there was a portion lost in the universe, which was discovered by Light Emperor. Thus, the Crimson Light Floating World was found. This showed how strong an undying God consciousness was. Soon, Qin Mu's consciousness traveled tens of thousands of miles and saw a huge river surging forward, and from the terrain and meanders, it was the surging river. The surging river is the celestial river. People who open up the celestial river divine treasure after me will find it much easier. Qin Mu was delighted. He felt that the celestial river divine treasure was the best seventh divine treasure, but purely borrowing the power of heaven and earth to open up the divine treasure would eliminate most of the divine arts practitioners. There wouldn't be many that could open up the celestial river divine treasure. Luckily, the surging river is the celestial river, so they can go to the surging river directly and borrow the power of the celestial river to open up the celestial river divine treasure. It won't be as troublesome as what I had to do. Qin Mu was about to pull back his consciousness when he was slightly stunned. His undying God consciousness saw fog surging on the river. Qin Mu hurriedly stopped his consciousness and looked over to see a woman swaying in the fog. That woman was dressed in plain and simple clothes which looked very ancient. She wore a leopard skin skirt, a short gown, and grass shoes. On her head was a peachwood hairpin. Celestial Venerable Ling. Qin Mu was stunned, and he immediately moved his undying God consciousness to chase that woman on the river. His consciousness entered the fog and passed through the fog quickly. The woman in the fog seemed too far from him, and no matter how much his consciousness flew, he couldn't close the distance. When Qin Mu saw the mountains on both sides of the surging river changing, and the trees withering continuously, he came to a realization. The mountains changing and the trees withering were actually the scenery of history. The surging river didn't change, but the surroundings were like the blue sea turned into mulberry fields. There were mountains sinking into the ground and mountains rising from the ground. Trees grew from young to old before turning back into saplings, into seeds. His consciousness wasn't flying, instead, it had never moved. This kind of marvelous divine art made him recall the kind of divine art where substance wouldn't change, the one Celestial Venerable Ling had envisioned. On both sides of the surging river, the scenery became weirder and weirder. Numerous apparitions of gods could be seen transforming from skeletons to corpses, from collapsed on the ground to standing up and fighting. Qin Mu saw the history on both sides of the surging river as it flickered past. His consciousness found it harder and harder to continue, and the scenery on both sides became more and more ancient. Celestial Venerable Ling. His consciousness surged forth, and he tried to catch the attention of the girl in the fog. Yet that girl still couldn't hear his voice. The scenery on both sides of the surging river became more and more ancient. Suddenly, a tall and sturdy gate rose from the ruins and stood tall. That was a southern heavenly gate. Next, he saw the southern heavenly gate rising, and an incomparably majestic celestial palace was also rising. The surging river rose into mid-air with this celestial palace, and the torrential river also rose up to the 9 heavens above. Qin Mu's consciousness reached the extreme, and he exerted all his force to shout, "Celestial Venerable Ling." Suddenly, the fog vanished, and everything became clear. Qin Mu's consciousness was exhausted and faded into nothing. The instant his consciousness was exhausted, he saw that woman standing on the surface of the celestial river hear something. She turned back to look at where his consciousness was and revealed a look of astonishment. "Celestial Venerable Mu. Is it you? Celestial Venerable Mu." Qin Mu's consciousness broke down. "So you aren't in the High Emperor era, wait for me to find you," Celestial Venerable Ling's voice rang out. Boom. Loud booms rang beside Qin Mu's ears. When he opened his eyes, he was still in the manor in eternal peace. The power of heaven and earth was pouring over and molding the celestial river, which was passing through all divine treasures and celestial palaces. The celestial river had taken shape, and it transformed from virtual to reality. This divine treasure started from the celestial palace, and descended down from the sky. It flowed down the Builder Tree divine bridge to pass through the galaxy, streaming down the sun, moon, and 7 stars like a white-colored sash. It brought overflowing water to swirl around the Builder Tree, and passed by the back of Qin Mu's primordial spirit's head to form a huge circle. It then flowed into the 6 directions land and entered the life and death divine treasure, vanishing into the darkness. As the power of heaven and earth was absorbed by him, the whirlpool of darkness and the whirlpool of light gradually became smaller. After a moment, the instant both whirlpools vanished, a loud surging sound of tides rang out. Qin Mu instantly felt the celestial river divine treasure forming a looping system in his body. The celestial river that had vanished into Yudu reappeared in the celestial palaces, and the loop continued. "I saw Celestial Venerable Ling on the surging river." Qin Mu was slightly in a daze, and his heart couldn't calm down. "I saw the High Emperor Celestial Heavens." "What is Celestial Venerable Ling doing in the High Emperor Celestial Heavens?" Thump. Qin Mu got punched in the head, and it immediately swelled up. Saint Woodcutter said with a displeased tone, "Rascal, you have scared all the kids in the capital city, and you are still in spacing out. If you weren't my disciple and if I didn't know you well, I would have already subjugated you as a demon." Qin Mu came back to his senses, and he saw himself being tightly surrounded. The heavenly teachers, the past human emperors, Granny Sai, and the old and young Taoists and monks were all gathered here. Sakura Buddha had also arrived with a bruised face. Dieu and Heavenly King Tian Shu were also here. There was also a man cloaked in a cape of darkness, and it was King Yama of Fengdu. King Yama, Dieu, and Tian Shu must have arrived when he was opening the celestial river divine treasure. Qin Mu was rather moved, and he let out a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "Luckily, I have not failed your expectations. The 26th 7th divine treasure has been opened up by me. Let me shatter it." The old farmer walked up with his fist tightly clenched. Qin Mu hurriedly said, "Hold it." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Several hands pressed down on the old farmer's shoulders. Emperor Yangfeng, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, Granny Sai, and Butcher were the first to press him down, and they got blown away. Next, Woodcutter and Fisherman made their moves and got blown away as well. Sakura Buddha stretched out his hand, and the apparition of Mount Meru, and the 20 heavens pressed down on the old farmer's head. Tian Shu pulled out his knife and held it at the old farmer's throat, while Dieu pressed down with Mingju Heavenly Gate on his back. Farmer sneered and said, let's not talk about how the 4 heavenly kings aren't here, but you might not be able to take me down even if you all work together. We, the 4 great heavenly teachers, have never been afraid of the 4 great heavenly kings. Scholar swayed her feathered fan gently and said with a smile, Qin Mu said to hold it. So why are you in a hurry? All right. I'll listen to second brother. Farmer said straightforwardly, after he's done, I'll shatter his divine treasure. Qin Mu was finally at ease and said with a smile, this celestial river divine treasure is the best divine treasure I've found. It's even much better than the divine bridge divine treasure, as it is a unification of divine treasures. Celestial river divine treasure can connect to 6 other divine treasures and open access between all of these divine treasures, gathering the power of all the divine treasures in one's body. Qin Mu gave a soft shout and activated the divine treasures in his body. His divine treasures projected out from his back. Everyone hurriedly looked over and saw the celestial river descending from the sky. The river flowed down Builder Tree and passed through divine treasure after divine treasures, forming a loop. And the most crucial thing is that the celestial river is connected to the celestial palaces, merging the power of the celestial palaces along with the power of the divine treasures. From then on, the divine treasures that you open up will harmonize with the celestial palaces, allowing gods to find it even more convenient to mobilize the power of the divine treasures. This is also a benefit for the gods. Qin Mu still hasn't cultivated to his celestial palace yet, so he could only let people faintly see that his celestial river was connected to the celestial palace, which was extremely high up, to show them that the celestial river was flowing out of the celestial palace. However, divine arts practitioners still benefit the most. Qin Mu continued to show everyone his fruit of labor, and began to mobilize his vital qi. He executed all kinds of divine art, and the activation speed of the divine arts in his hands was extremely fast, so fast that they couldn't catch what he was doing. Because all the divine treasures were all connected, the power of all the divine treasures was mobilized at almost the same instant. Furthermore, his primordial spirit was also incomparably strong, and it was numerous times stronger than the previous cultivation system of divine treasures. When all the divine treasures of a divine arts practitioner are connected, their magic power would be doubled and the time required to mobilize the vital qi would be halved, or even shorter. The activation speed of the divine art would be even faster, and the primordial spirit will be even stronger. Qin Mu executed all kinds of divine arts one by one and said solemnly, after a divine arts practitioner cultivates to life and death realm, they will reach celestial river divine treasure once they break through the wall. When they reach this realm, the 7 great divine treasures will become one and they will be able to fight with fake gods, who stand outside Southern Heavenly Gate after crossing the divine bridge. In the manner, everyone quietened down, but their hearts were thumping furiously. This celestial river divine treasure from Qin Mu had indeed surpassed divine bridge divine treasure by leaps and bounds. From celestial river divine treasure, they saw the hope of the future, an incomparably prosperous era. Emperor Yanfeng's voice was hoarse and he said, Minister Qin, celestial river divine treasure is so perfect, so would it be hard to open up? There's no celestial river divine treasure in the current human body, and only the broken divine bridge is left. If celestial river is hard to open up, it wouldn't be much use to the people now. Qin Mu said with a smile, as long as we go to celestial river, we can utilize the power of celestial river so it wouldn't be difficult to open up celestial river divine treasure. As for the specific details on the method to open it up, I will sort it out later, and let your majesty spread it out. Emperor Yangfeng was at a loss. Celestial river. Where's celestial river? It's none other than Surging River. Surging River is the celestial river of Dragon Han celestial heavens in the past. I don't know why it had become Surging River after flowing here. Qin Mu didn't explain much and continued to say, as long as one heads to Surging River, and comprehend the power of surging river, they will be able to guide this power to mold celestial river divine treasure in their body. I can even sense the intense power of celestial river from the capital city, so it will definitely be even stronger beside surging river. The comprehension will definitely be easier as well. I'm mobilizing the power of heaven and earth to mold the celestial river. This method is too difficult, and not many will be able to do it. On the other hand, comprehending celestial river and borrowing power from celestial river would be countless times simpler. Emperor Yangfeng was even more at a loss. He muttered, "Surging river, is it that surging river where dragon rearing sovereign is at?" When he mentioned this, Qin Mu's face turned as black as charcoal and said resentfully, "It's that surging river." He had conferred the title of Surging River Dragon King onto dragon rearing sovereign, and even signed the Pact of Earth Count with him, making a pact with him to maintain the water transportation and conservancy of Surging River. On the other hand, dragon rearing sovereign could enjoy offerings to Surging River, and that included some of the aquatic life forms in Surging River. As for erasing the incomplete divine bridge divine treasure in the divine arts practitioners' bodies, that would be even simpler. Qin Mu was full of confidence and said, "Martial arts heavenly teacher can easily destroy divine bridge divine treasure, so big sister Dieu, heavenly teacher Zishi, Buddha, first ancestor, King Yama, senior uncle fisherman, Tianshu, you all should have this kind of ability." Village chief shook his head and said, "Mua, you are robust and your body is sturdy, you will be fine even if your divine bridge is destroyed, but it might not be so for the others. Even if they don't die, they would probably be stripped out of their skin. You need to find a person that's not as robust as you to try." After he said so, he looked at human Emperor Qi Kang. Human Emperor Qi Kang felt the chills. "Su Muzha, I'm your master, your dear master. Your Grandmaster Yishan's body is sturdy, use his as an experiment." Human Emperor Yishan was furious, "Am I not dear?" Qin Mu calculated and said, "Using Grandmasters and Ancestors as test subjects isn't too bad. They were no weaker than me, so they are probably not dead." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor muttered to himself, "Can gods who had already cultivated to the Celestial Palace also destroy divine bridge divine treasure to cultivate Celestial River divine treasure instead?" Everyone's heart clenched. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had asked the main point. In the current Eternal Peace Empire, there were 200 to 300 gods. Woodcutter and the rest were gods of founding emperor era. Their primordial spirits have already crossed their divine treasures to enter the celestial palaces. From the effectiveness of Celestial River divine treasure, which Qin Mu had created, divine bridge divine treasure would definitely be eliminated by Celestial River divine treasure in the future, and they would be called old gods. The battle power of old gods would be inferior to the new gods, and that was the first point. The second point was that their descendants' divine treasures, which were inherited from them, would be inferior to the descendants of the new gods, or even inferior, that the descendants of those divine arts practitioners that had opened up Celestial River divine treasure. Even though their descendants could also destroy their divine treasures and open up Celestial River divine treasure, not everyone could open up the Celestial River. There was bound to be some descendants that wouldn't be able to achieve it. And these people would be eliminated by their era like they were. If divine bridge divine treasure is destroyed, would the power of the celestial palaces come collapsing down? Qin Mu didn't understand much regarding this. What influence would it cause if divine bridge divine treasure is destroyed? I'm also not so clear about this. Farmer suddenly said, "Not much influence. I don't have a divine bridge." Everyone looked at him and Farmer said, "The other divine treasures would indeed have to bear extremely heavy pressure if one is missing the divine bridge, but it is still bearable." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "Senior Uncle's attainments in your corporeal body are extremely high, so you can still bear it. However, not everyone has a corporeal body as strong as Senior Uncle does. For safety reasons, I feel we should still seal Southern Heavenly Gate before breaking the Divine Bridge. I shall create the technique to seal Southern Heavenly Gate. Sealing Southern Heavenly Gate isn't too troublesome. Qin Mu continued to ask. I have been researching with Xu Xinghua on how to combine the divine treasures into one, and we have quite some gains. Build a Tree Innate Divine Bridge was created by Xu Xinghua. If one has built a Tree Innate Divine Bridge, it can also make the divine treasure even more stable. Their cultivation would also be stronger than those who do not have built a tree. However, build a Tree Innate Divine Bridge requires extremely high attainments in algebra, so not many people can cultivate it. Everyone praised. Xu Xinghua indeed has matchless talent. Build a Tree Innate Divine Bridge in all colleges and Imperial College. Whoever can cultivate it shall cultivate it. Emperor Yangfeng said, if they can't, there's no need to force them. Qin Mu nodded his head and hesitated for a moment. Everyone, now take a look at my divine treasure again. He released his aura and suddenly, a series of reflection appeared under the divine treasures of the God Path. The divine treasures of the Devil Path surged out, and there was also a Builder Tree, Spirit Embryo, 5 elements, 6 directions, 7 stars divine treasure. There was also a celestial river falling in the reverse direction, and connecting with the celestial river in the divine treasures of the God Path. Everyone broke in a commotion and was astonished. Discussions arose and everyone started to chatter noisily. Suddenly, village chief gave everyone a look of disdain and sneered, it's the overlord body. Granny Sai, deaf, butcher, old Ma, and blind understood and they smiled. Even though these seniors have astonishing abilities, their horizons are shallow and inferior to us. They don't know the power of the overlord body. They were very pleased. After all, they were all convinced by village chief a long time ago, so they didn't find it weird anymore. How do you cultivate this out? Scholar went forward to study and asked in astonishment. Saint Woodcutter, Dieur, Sakrabuddha, and the rest also went up and examined it before crying out in astonishment. They are truly divine treasures, they aren't a reflection. Even the celestial river is real. Heavenly Teacher Fisherman cried out in astonishment. Farmer cried out, the other life and death divine treasure is not the same as the previous one. What a lack of knowledge. Second ancestor folded his arms and sneered. The other human emperors also folded their arms and sneered. We already knew it when we got beaten up by him. Is that right, first ancestor? First ancestor human emperor's expression didn't change as he said, don't talk nonsense. Second ancestor reminded him. Teacher, you were also beaten up by him before. First ancestor's expression turned black and he stuttered, I didn't. Nonsense, you got beaten up in front of Hall of Human Emperors and you even cried. I feel that everyone can cultivate positive and negative divine treasures, and they could also be connected into one by celestial river divine treasure. Only life and death divine treasure is different, one is life and death divine treasure, and the other is Xuanju divine treasure. Qin Mu said, above the primordial spirit is heaven and below is earth. Up is God and down is devil. We, humans, are neither God nor devil, so we don't have to just focus on one. I feel we might even possess both God and devil to form the human path. God and devil have many restrictions, but we don't have to force those restrictions on ourselves. Jumping out of it might make our world even wider. Everyone surrounded him and walked in circles, pondering about how to open up the other divine treasures of the devil path. Even though Qin Mu was right, it was too difficult to achieve it. This wasn't something they could do instantly. Woodcutter suddenly asked, how did you open your divine treasures of the devil path? Qin Mu said, my other identity is son of Yudu, so I open it up somehow. I also don't know the exact details, but this is a feasible path. Woodcutter frowned and continued to walk around him. Not everyone is son of Yudu, you can do it doesn't mean other people have the requirements to. Everyone else was also frowning and thinking. Qin Mu became giddy as they walking around him. As he planned to push everyone aside to go out, everyone stopped him. You can't go. You can only leave after everyone finishes studying you. Qin Mu said troubledly, I was only throwing a problem for you guys to solve, I still have other things I have to do. Scholar said, only you have succeeded as of now, so we can only study you. If you go, who do we study? Qin Mu could only sit down. Celestial Venerable Yu, who was not far away, let out a sigh of relief. These few days had taken quite a toll on his, and he was being stared at continuously. He could finally relax now. Qin Mu was studied by these few people for half a month. Daoist Lin Xian and the other Taoists even crawled into his divine treasures to take down detailed data, recording them down. His divine treasures of the Devil Path were completely studied by everyone, and they combined all of their studies to take out a list of regulations. Granny Sai said, not everyone is son of Yudu, so we need to breed a devil seed first. To use the seed to breed a Boulder Tree Divine Bridge. To plant the devil in the Tao heart and nurture the heart devil. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, after the devil nature becomes denser, one can open the spirit embryo of the devil path and give birth to the primordial spirit of the devil path. 5 elements, 6 directions, and 7 stars will be easy, but Xuanju divine treasure will be difficult. To achieve this step, that's 1 in a billion. There's still any hurdle behind, and that is Celestial River Divine Treasure. After Celestial River Divine Treasure is completed, there's still another problem, and that is who will be the one to open the Celestial Palaces of the Devil Path. We don't have any Celestial Palaces of the Devil Path in our body. But if you can do it, you can be crowned the God King, or the Saintly King of the Devil Path. Qin Mu just focused on executed his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, and sat there to train for half a month. Everyone sighed when they saw him like this. Emperor Yangfeng still had a good heart, and reminded him. Minister, if you can sort out these techniques, the people of the world will respect you as Saintly King. Countless divine arts practitioners will revere you. Qin Mu asked, is the title of Saintly King higher than Celestial Venerable? Emperor Yangfeng shook his head. No. Celestial Venerable's contribution is the largest, and even Saintly King is slightly inferior. God King is also a title for great contribution, but it's still slightly inferior to Saintly King. I don't care then, it's too troublesome. Qin Mu said, I'll just be my Celestial Venerable. Emperor Yangfeng snorted, but the little eunuch beside him wasn't around, so he couldn't record anywhere. He thought to himself, I'll record this down in my book when I get back. Everyone finished studying and sorted out a constitution. Next, each of them chose a direction they wanted to research into and targeted that direction. The divine treasures of the Devil Path was a very huge cultivation system, and if one person had to research everything, he might not complete it even if he dedicated all his life to the research. Even if each of them chose one direction to research, they also required a large amount of capable people. For example, Heavenly Saint Academy where Granny Sai and Village Chief was in, Dao Sect where Dao Master Lin Xian was in, Little Jade Capital where Wang Muren was in, there were numerous talents, could be picked to assist them in their deductions, to elaborate on every fine detail of the divine treasures of the Devil Path. They just had to be in control of the general direction. Everyone used another dozens of days to sort out the blessings of the ancient gods behind Celestial Venerable Yu's head. Woodcutter collected all of the runes of the gods and handed them over to Emperor Yangfeng. Emperor Yangfeng was tearing up with joy, and he said, Eternal Peace's paths, skills and divine arts shall soar high from now onwards. Everyone couldn't help having the same sentiments. Celestial Venerable Yu was like a huge treasure vault. Just by studying the halo behind Celestial Venerable Yu's head was enough for Eternal Peace's paths, skills and divine arts to advance by leaps and bounds. Eternal Peace Emperor, your words fall short. Woodcutter said, Emperor, you only see the paths, skills and divine arts of the ancient gods, but you didn't see the paths, skills and divine arts of us, the life forms after the beginning. You must not neglect the root and pursue the tip. Emperor Yangfeng bowed to the ground and asked sincerely, May teacher enlighten me? Woodcutter said, I'm the heavenly teacher of founding emperor, I'm not your heavenly teacher. I can't teach you, ask your heavenly teacher. Emperor Yangfeng was slightly stunned, and he immediately came back to his senses. He consulted Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. Your Majesty, what teacher means is that even though we have received the runes of the ancient gods, these runes don't belong to us, the life forms after the beginning. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said firmly, even though we are lacking inherently, we had managed to create sword Dao, knife Dao, the four arts, martial divine art, and all of these aren't the great Dao of the ancient gods, nor are they the great Dao of heaven and earth. They were created by us from nothing. What teacher means that these are then our roots? Emperor Yangfeng suddenly saw the light. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor continued to say, Your Majesty, our reform can absorb the good points of the ancient gods, but we cannot give up on our good points. Only by making use of the good points from both sides can our society improve. Emperor Yangfeng acknowledged and said, Imperial Preceptor's words have solved the questions that had been plaguing me from years. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said softly, Teacher also has another layer of meaning. By understanding the runes of the great Tao of ancient gods, we will be able to understand the weakness of every one of the ancient gods. Emperor Yanfeng's heart trembled violently. What Imperial Preceptor mean is? Your Majesty will naturally understand. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, now that Primordial Realm has broken out of the seal and all kinds of power are emerging, we need to make early preparations. There are strong practitioners from Founding Emperor era helping us, but we still have to rely on us in the end. If Your Majesty relies on the gods of Founding Emperor for everything, what's the purpose of Eternal Peace Empire's reform? Your Majesty needs to prepare now to face the ancient gods in the future. This is so we won't be totally unable to fight back. Emperor Yangfeng felt apprehensive. Looking at the books that everyone had put an effort into sorting out, he let out a shaky breath and said with a soft voice, I will not disappoint Imperial Preceptor's hope. I will not let down the hope of our predecessors. Even if I have to give my life to the Empire, I will make this reform last long. The 3 heavenly kings and the 4 heavenly teachers gathered together. Dieus' gaze twinkled and she said, I already have some confidence in removing the blessings of the ancient gods. However, there are simply too many blessings on Celestial Venerable Yu. Their links are also extremely so the ancient gods might detect something. Thus, Scholar smiled and said, thus we need a test subject. The other heavenly teachers and heavenly kings immediately looked at Qin Mu in unison. Qin Mu still didn't sense anything, and he was currently telling the human emperors that had reincarnated by possession how to cultivate Celestial River divine treasure. He was planning to use human Emperor Yi Shan and human Emperor Qi Kang as test subjects. Even though Qi Kang and Yi Shan were willing, the other human emperors were all very willing. First Ancestor also nodded his head, so it wasn't up to them to make a choice. Scholar pulled back her gaze and looked at Dieua while swaying her feathered fan with a smile. The number 1 heavenly king is praised by Founding Emperor for being the person with the most outstanding aptitude. If you can get rid of Mother Earth's blessing, can you get rid of Heaven Duke's blessing? Dieua looked at her and said indifferently, the number 1 formation master of Founding Emperor, the only person brought to Carefree Village by Founding Emperor, he views you even more highly than me. In that case, how many blessings can Zishi remove? Scholar said with a smile, even though I'm the only one brought by Founding Emperor to Carefree Village, and I know that the rest of you bore grudges. I had never betrayed founding emperor before. Not one of the 4 great heavenly teachers had betrayed him, and yet there are 2 that had fallen among the 4 great heavenly kings. Dieus' face instantly turned dark. Sakura Buddha also didn't have a pleasant expression. Qin Mu carried Imperial Gate divine knife and sneered. So what if you are the 4 great heavenly teachers? Don't forget, I was the one who had chopped off the horn of earth count. Only then was there Fengdu, only then was there a place for the remaining survivors of founding emperor to have a place to settle down, only then was the land of eternal peace safe. Among the 4 great heavenly teachers, the ones who could run had run, those who could hide had hidden. Some even blamed themselves and turned into stone for 20,000 years. What face do you have to scorn us, the 4 great heavenly kings? Woodcutter and fisherman were silent. When the army had lost, they had turned into stone statues. They truly didn't have the face to. Farmer also didn't say a word. When the army had lost, he guarded bullfighting world and didn't do much. In terms of contribution, Qin Mu, the Mingju heavenly king, had still done the most. Scholar sneered and said, Mingju heavenly king is indeed remarkable, but you are ranked behind among the 4 great heavenly kings. The number 1 heavenly king was married to son of heavenly Yin before the battle, and got assassinated by him during their nuptial night. She died for 20,000 years. The strongest force of founding emperor was instantly destroyed, so how are we, the 4 heavenly teachers, supposed to fight? We are here to teach, not to fight. She looked at Sakura Buddha and said coldly, Heavenly King Li Yuran is also rather remarkable, as the 3rd heavenly king, to get tangled up with red deity Qi Xiaoyu of the fake dynasty. Founding emperor got you to build carefree village and you went to become a monk, because you were plagued by love. As the god of war, you have run away, and let us teachers brace ourselves and fight. It's no wonder we had lost. I won't say Green Emperor, his old and is our elder. But what about Qin Mu? During the ending period of the war, you got lured away by left assistant minister Yang Shaoqing of the fake dynasty, and got tricked into Imperial Gate divine knife. Without you, how are we teachers supposed to fight? I know how to lay out formations, to teach the 4 arts, but I've never led an army before. Farmer, woodcutter, fisherman, which one of them had led an army before? She sneered and said, Founding emperor handed the military power to the 4 of you, yet you guys had crumbled one after another, letting the 4 teachers, having to lead the army and fight to the death with the extraterritorial celestial heavens. If we aren't the ones who are going to lose, who is? Dieus, Sakura Buddha and Qin Mu were silent. After a moment, Dieus sighed and bowed to the ground. I'm sorry, Dao friends. Eua has failed founding emperor's expectations. Sakura Buddha and Qin Mu also bowed to the ground for a long time. There's no use apologizing to me. Scholar didn't help them up and said coldly, You didn't let us down, you let founding emperor down. You let those soldiers, who had died in battle, down. You have let the people of founding emperor era down. A god dynasty that had lasted for 20,000 years was vanquished just like that. Countless lives were lost and only that few people that Prince Qin Mu had saved remained. I'm also guilty, we, the 4 heavenly teachers, are also guilty, in that calamity. The one with the greatest contribution wasn't the 4 great heavenly teachers. It also wasn't the 4 great heavenly kings. It was the army deserter. It was Prince Qin Mu. Sinners, we are all sinners. Everyone was silent. If it wasn't for first ancestor human Emperor Qin Mu, who had protected the last of the people from founding emperor era to immigrate and look for a safe haven, eternal peace wouldn't have even existed afterward. Saint Woodcutter was silent and he suddenly asked, Let's not talk about this. Is founding emperor well? Scholar didn't answer and looked back. Far away, Qin Mu's ears grew larger. The earholes were originally facing two sides, but now his ears had actually rotated to the back of his head to eavesdrop on them. Scholar pulled back his gaze and didn't speak. He started to sign with his hands and conversed with sign language. Right at this moment, the hair on the back of Qin Mu's head parted and a face grew out. His eyes opened to stare at her hands. Scholar frowned and whispered, "We'll use our consciousness to communicate." The consciousness of the 7 strong practitioners collided together, and just as Scholar was about to tell them, she counted and realized the number of consciousness was wrong. There was actually 8. Scholar's head became huge, and she gritted her teeth. "We'll talk another day." Woodcutter called Qin Mu over and revealed a smile. "Mua, we already have full confidence of removing the blessings from Celestial Venerable Yu's head, however, we need a test subject. Heavenly teachers, heavenly kings, do you bear to let Qin Mu be the subject?" The other 6 people had fierce gazes as they looked at him and said in unison, "What's there not to bear?" Cold sweat broke out on Qin Mu's forehead, and he secretly moved a few steps back. He revealed a sincere smile and said, "Teacher, senior uncles, I didn't hear anything." Sakura Buddha stretched his finger out and a golden rope bound him tightly, bringing him to their faces. Qin Mu was about to shout for help when Woodcutter sealed his mouth with a divine art. "Let's begin." 7 of them looked at one another in the eyes, and suddenly Scholar and Dieu moved. They circled around Qin Mu and struck at the blessing behind his head. Boom! Boom! Rumbles rang out. Dieu was an expert on Emperor's throne, and even though Scholar wasn't on Emperor's throne, her overall cultivation was terrifyingly high. Both of them had their own good points, and they used all kinds of methods to break the runes of Mother Earth's great Tao. Soon, the halo behind Qin Mu's head became tattered and it dimmed. Scholar suddenly said, "Everyone, be careful. Mother Earth has already detected us." Third brother. Mingdu Heavenly King. Farmer bent his legs and leaped into midair. Looking down, he saw the ground at the west of the capital city rolling and the mountains shaking. There seemed to be something huge moving underground. Farmer shouted and he took a step to cross 1,000 miles. He punched down on the ground and the capital city shook at that moment. Everyone in the capital city could see light filling the sky in the west, turning it as bright as day. And at this moment, knife light descended down from the sky as Heavenly King Qin Mu stabbed his knife deep into the ground. God blood poured out from the ground and flowed into Mud River, dyeing Mud River red. Part 315 and 316 end here. Thank you for watching.